Okay, let's begin. This was last Friday, August the 5th. The 5th, which was around 1:30, which is a trade that I took. So I did go bearish. I also got knocked out around this area, and then I also went bearish again. So let's just, see what happened. Like, review, how could I have done this better, for example. So let's just analyze a little further back. So beforehand, I basically drew in all my support and resistance lines. Comprende, we're all good. We know where roughly everything is. Times this, 1152. Cool. So the first thing we see around 1152 is a bullish engulfing pattern. Okay, cool. That goes up, and then that comes to a halt around this dark cloud. That dark cloud is piercing more than halfway, expressing more bearish momentum. Yeah, there we go. And then obviously it climbs a little further down as well, so that's good. So right now we've established a resistance area. So above it, it's resistance. Cool. So we've got a resistance area above it, which we can obviously see that it's come back and touched, which is where I got knocked out and then re-entered. But we'll get back to that. So when you get a dark cloud, it's basically insinuating that it is a top, and the more likely it pierces into your long and usually bullish candle, the more authenticity it has, the more gusto. After that, we then have a bullish engulfing. So this bullish candle here engulfs like the entirety of the spinning top that is next to it, and that acts as support. So now we basically have a congestion band, which is squishing price into this big box, and it's probably going to jumble around for a bit before it actually does anything. But I didn't actually see it till around this area, which I have circled, and I'm spinning around. And then we have this test here. So we have two gravestone dojis. Well, more or less a doji. It should be a little bit more squished, but let's just call it a gravestone. So we got two gravestones, which is confirming the resistance, and that's because that's like where it doesn't necessarily touch it, just enough near it. It is basically confirming that there is some sort of resistance next to that. Escapes me, dark cloud, and then it comes back and then it bounces again. So this now is confirming support around this area. It doesn't then again need to touch it exactly, just needs to come near it, and that confirms that is basically support. And then we get a bunch of bullish engulfings here. Now what's interesting is when it comes near 66%, so it comes near the 66%, comes near it, we get this bullish candle, which is a piercing pattern. That piercing pattern does go further than halfway. A piercing pattern is basically the opposite of a dark cloud, but it's not unusually long, right? So the previous candle isn't unusually long. On top of that, what's most interesting is the shadow that's above it, right? So if we notice the shadow that's above it, it's squished down, so it's not as authentic, because now, even though you have that pattern, it also has a massive shadow above it, basically saying that it got squished. So the bears did come in at some point and slash that in half. Well, not in half, but it slashed that. We're getting tested this area, but it's not coming close. But then it really tests it around this area, right? Really tests it, like, and obviously like around this area here, we got small candles, but lots of like all the bears. You can see that even though it's got bullish candles, the momentum is definitely weakening, and then the second it touches this, it completely floors down. Like, it just goes. If we look at these TD points, so you see this line here, and for example this line here, this one here, like there's tests near that, which is showing that's also acting as resistance. That's respecting it as it goes up. So this TD point, all these candles here and here, this location here is respecting that line. And even if you extend it even further you also see it's respecting that line. So it's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of like, it really has kind of squished, hasn't it? Really has, like, and it's come near it and it's come down. So this is where I got knocked out basically. The spread started getting really big and exploding, like, and it was like a whole thing. And then I re-entered, and then it crumbled down. See, I wasn't necessarily sure how far this one would have gone, but it did tank. So I came out roughly around this area here. So I ended up with something like, it was like £45 to a fiver or something like that. I think that's what I ended up with. But if we look at the hourly, so this was the hourly at the time over here, and we had this small spinning top which is right next to the moving averages. Now these moving averages, right, it's like, it acts like an elastic band, do you know what I mean? Like an elastic band. So if you stretch too far away from it, it'll just sling you back, you know. And that is pretty near like the moving averages, so it's like condensed. It's like it's ready to be released from its band, for example, like, and explore the world and go out. And then obviously, like, you can see later how it reacts after it became overextended. It zinged back, you know. But like, while, for example, like here, let's take this, like, if you saw this and you saw this little candle here, like, and you saw this here, would you have taken that hammer? Probably not with that large massive candle. You needed something a little bit more, like, more authentic, like, for example, like the ending of that giant bearish candle maybe, and then you could have looked to something that was insinuating some sort of like bullish move. I'm not necessarily sure, but I wasn't really looking at that. So yeah, that's not the bit we're looking at. We're looking at this little section here. But yeah, I think that's really what went on here. I think that the main pointers to take from this trade was the fact that this dark cloud here really, if you take a trade and you end up in a congestion band of sorts, you shouldn't use the previous highs. You should just use the top of the candle, because at least you know you confirmed that is an absolute high. But the other thing as well, you want to factor in spread. So the thing is, the thing I messed up on was, if I had put 2 pips above it, like this, that would not have touched it. I mean, it might have looked, but it probably wouldn't have touched it. But then it was flaking out at the end anyway, so I probably would have removed my stop temporarily, so it could, you know, do its little wiggle, or maybe just gave it more room, but still had a stop on, you know, like maybe just doubled my risk. But because the way it was fluctuating, I think probably it was news or something, but it just went haywire completely. It went bonkers. I was like, "Rah, okay, cool." So I was out of that. But that's kind of what happened, really, to be fair. But yeah, main point is those. So what do you think? What do you think I could also take a look at in like these situations? Like these long upper shadows is clearly indicating like bearish. Are there any other like indications that you may have noticed? Obviously, like here as well, that's actually a bearish engulfing. Oh yeah, that's why I took it there as well. I took it on the basis that this was a bearish engulf, like this engulfed this candle. Anyway, I hope this helps. Thank you for listening, and like and subscribe for more juicy things. Peace out.